Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Conrad Madsen. Thanks for being on the show, Conrad.
Thanks for having me, Whitney. I appreciate you inviting me to this forum here today. I'm looking forward to having some fun with you.
Yeah, me as well. And a little about Conrad, innovation, tenacity, and servanthood. Those are qualities which define Tom Landry, who was Conrad's idol growing up. Those principles now permeate his company, Paladin Partners, as he drives forward, building a one-of-a-kind give-back platform in Dallas commercial real estate. I look forward to hearing more about that. And consistency recognized by the Dallas Business, or he's consistently recognized by the Dallas Business Journal and DCEO magazine as one of the heavy hitters, power brokers in commercial real estate. Conrad specializes in tenant representation, project leasing, land and building sales, investment property sales, and corporate services consulting for clients. Conrad, welcome to the show. I'm grateful to have you on. I know you have some massive amount of experience in this industry. And so looking forward to hearing about just your path, getting into commercial real estate. And let's dive into your focus right now.
Sure. I know. I appreciate that. Before we get started, Whitney, I just would like to tell you, thank you for your service first and foremost. To me, a lot of people take for granted the freedoms that this country has because of men like yourself who served our country. And thank you so much for your service to America. That means a lot to me. And I
appreciate that.
And I love just networking and trying to help veterans in general, because it's a tough gig a lot of those guys go through, and especially after they get back from serving our country, where you and I are so fortunate to live in.
No doubt. Well, thank you for that very much, Conrad. And give us a little more about yourself and just show us that path into commercial real estate.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm a small town guy. I did not grow up in what they would consider the big city here in Dallas, Texas. I actually grew up in deep South Texas in a little bitty town called Mission. It's right next to a bigger town called McAllen, which some folks have heard of. It's 5 miles from the Mexican border. And, growing up was a different life. I didn't grow up with much. And most of my families were just, farmers. That's how they all immigrated there way back in the late 1800s and such. But, how commercial real estate came to be, it's an interesting path. My grandmother actually sold real estate growing up. So I was kind of around, her selling some homes and things of that nature. My dad had a manufacturing business. And so I was kind of always inside of what you'd call a warehouse or a plant or what have you as a kid. So I was kind of always amazed by real estate to a degree, but it was a long path to get there. After college, funny, I noticed that you also served in the police, I believe, for the state of Kentucky, if that's correct.
That's right.
And what's interesting is my degree is actually in criminal justice. And it's just so funny how, a lot of people get in this business, they got finance backgrounds and all these other, real estate concentrations. And here I am, a criminal justice guy, and now I'm, practicing real estate on a daily basis. I thought the FBI was going to be my long-term career path. But I had an internship with them in college. But then I got out of college and I realized, well, I didn't speak a foreign language. I wasn't a CPA or an attorney. So it was like, go get a real job and then come back if you want to apply. And so long story short, I thought I'd go to law school. I ended up working for a law firm, just kind of doing remedial stuff, filing documents at the courthouse to get a feel for that while I was studying for the LSAT. Met a guy who was a recruiter. This is in the .com era. And he was servicing a little company called broadcast.com back in the day that was Mark Cuban's company that he sold to Yahoo for like $4 billion. So he's placing all these people, making a ton of money in the .com era. And so I thought, well, I'll give recruiting a shot. So I did recruiting for about 3.5 years. Enjoyed it, knew it wasn't my long-term game, but it taught me some incredible phone skills, which, as you know, Whitney, being in real estate, you got to talk. It's a communication game. And so you got to talk to people. And I couldn't be, recruiting taught me a ton about how to communicate with people. But for pulling the whole Tom Landry story into commercial real estate, well, obviously, I grew up in Tom Landry's hometown, which is Mission, Texas. A lot of people don't know that. Obviously, Tom was the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys for 29 years. He had 20 straight winning seasons back in the day. But most importantly, Tom was known for his character and who he was as a man and how he carried himself. A lot of people talk about his wins and successes and Super Bowl titles and how he put, the Dallas Cowboys on the map, in the 70s. But really, you talk to so many people that knew Tom, and boy, they all say the same thing. Never probably met a better man in my life, and that's pretty powerful. And so obviously, being a Tom Landry fan, I was a Roger Staubach fan, right? Captain America was leading America's team back in the day in the late 70s when I was a small pup. And I saw what Roger did in commercial real estate. Well, Roger's corporate headquarters was in the same building, or it shared a gym with the same apartment complex that I lived in. And long story short, I got to know some of the brokers by just being at the gym every day, and finally got the courage to ask one of the guys out for lunch, and went up to their offices afterwards. And I was just, in awe, because I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe like Roger's probably down the hall, here. Long story short, a couple of the brokers gave me some time, a guy named Scott Collier and a gentleman by the name of Tom McCarthy. Tom really pointed me in the right direction. Staubach didn't have any opportunities for me at the time, but he told me some different firms to call, and I could use his name. And you fast forward 20 some odd years later, and I'm actually, one of my best friends is Connor McCarthy, which is Tom's son. And I didn't know Tom or Connor, from Adam 20 years ago. It's funny how life works.
It is funny how life works. And even how, different skills that you learn there have helped you obviously to go to the next thing, right? Even Absolutely. If it seemed unrelated, just those skill sets through the phone conversations that you had as a recruiter. I mean, now moving into commercial real estate were so useful, right? And so commercial real estate now, you've been in commercial real estate for a number of years now. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, speak to that individual who's in that transition right now, and maybe they are in the shoes you are. They have a different job somewhere, but they're looking at commercial real estate. Are they, should they ask a few brokers out, to go out to lunch or something to ask questions? Who should they be speaking to ensure that's the right path for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing about breaking into this commercial real estate industry, as you kind of know, it's not like you're on job boards and there's just job postings everywhere. Like if you want to get into commercial real estate, you got to pick up and I tell this to all the college graduates I speak to in front of all the time. I go, don't send and just email me resumes. Like if you want to break into this business, write handwritten notes, pick up the phone, cold call the principals at these organizations and tell them that you're interested in getting into commercial real estate. And if you talk to enough people and if you impress enough people, there will be an opportunity that arises for you. And from a brokerage perspective to asset management to property it really doesn't matter really what asset class, or what specialty within commercial real estate. It's more of just getting out there and networking. And as you know, it's all about networking.
No doubt about it. And, is there a way though that you could suggest that someone could stand out? Because there's a lot of noise, right?
Right.
For opportunities in this space, there are a lot of people, trying to have those phone calls or reaching
Yeah.
out. I like what you said though, even the handwritten notes and don't give up, right? Keep
Right.
calling. Keep calling.
Right.
But is there any ways that you've seen people, or maybe that you did, that could help you to stand out above the noise?
I mean, it's all about standing out. As you know, the most successful brokers in this business, they have one common trait, and it's persistence, right? There's no two ways around it. Anybody that's successful in this business, for the most part, unless they grew up with a silver spoon, and are hand-fed deals, most of everybody is just persistent, and persistence wins. And so doing different things like you said, just like kids nowadays just will send emails. They won't pick up the phone. So if you pick up the phone and leave messages, and you leave me one or two or three messages, I know that you're persistent. And because of that, I will definitely get you on my calendar. And if I can't help you, I will always point you in the right direction, because my whole deal is somebody gave me time 20 years ago, and I'll give anybody time nowadays if they, want to break into this industry.
I love that. And because I found that as well, getting into this business. I called and I put this out often. I heard a guy on a podcast, and he was very successful in commercial real estate. He put his phone number out. Guess what? I called him or texted him first, I think.
Right.
And he was willing to take a call. And I was so impressed by that. And he and I are friends to this day. And so and I put my phone number out on when I'm interviewed on podcasts all the time, and or email, those things.
Right.
And it's very seldom that anybody reaches out. I'm like, I just encourage people to take advantage of that. Or Conrad, getting into commercial real estate, it's incredible. Now that you've been in this long, tell us a little bit about maybe how, any big changes over your career that really stand out to you that helped you to get just to success, and to the level you're at now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you go back and you like kind of reflect on your commercial real estate career, right? Your first couple of years, you're just trying to get every single deal possible to close. You're trying to find deals, you're hunting constantly, and you're hoping to close deals so that you can pay your rent, and you can pay your car payment, and you can buy a girl a drink at the bar on the weekend. It's tough. That's the hardest part about commercial real estate, as is success doesn't come overnight, and the sales cycle is a long cycle. And so, while I've seen some guys have some luck and make good money in year one or year two, it's rare. There's got to be a little bit of that luck factor, but I always like to attribute luck to, the harder you work, the luckier you get. So a lot of those things go hand in hand, but, so your first couple of years, you're just trying to tread water, and then you start making some pops, and then you're like, oh, this is pretty good. And then you can finally pay off your student loan debt and all your other debts that you build up over the years. And then you get to the point in your career where you're like, okay, well, now what can I utilize? Now that I've built up some money, some capital, how can I use this? I heard this phrase years ago, and I use it all the time: make money while you sleep. Right. And so how can I use capital to make money while I'm sleeping? This is one of my favorite phrases that I tell brokers all the time. I said, there's a lot of rich brokers in this business. There's very few wealthy ones. The wealth, as you know, is on the ownership side of the game. There's a quote, I think Andrew Carnegie says that 90% of the world's, or maybe it's the US millionaires, all came from real estate investing, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you get to the point in your career where, you've put in your time, you have some capital. Now you got to go put that capital to work. So you start doing friends and family deals, you buy little buildings here and there, you lease them up, you flip them. And then you start building it up to the point of going, okay, well, now I really got some tangible capital now, and I've got a success story. Now let's go use other people's capital and try to do bigger things. And that's where I'm at in my career now, is working on growing a company, but also doing bigger things, not just investing in small little, warehouse or office or land deals. Let's go chase, large developments and build the suits and, all those type things. And that's my goal over the next 10 years, is really kind of ramp up that side of the business. And so to me, that's the smartest path for the guy who, didn't come from anything or knows nothing about real estate. You start learning the business by working transactions. And if you're smart, you don't over leverage yourself, and you save some of that capital, and you go and then you start doing bigger things.
Nice. No, that's some great advice. No doubt about it. Bedford's cost segregation specializes in generating significant tax savings via their engineering-based studies for commercial real estate clients nationwide. Founded in 2002, Bedford is one of the largest independently owned cost segregation providers in the country, with over 14,000 studies completed to date in multiple offices throughout. The most important decision ownership can make when incorporating cost segregation within their real estate portfolio is selecting the right provider. With only 43 certified cost segregation professionals nationwide, Bedford is proud to employ 8 of them and takes the quality of their people as seriously as their studies. Every certified cost segregation professional has passed a rigorous test combining knowledge of technical engineering issues, legal tax issues, ethics standards, and requires a strict level of prior work experience to be eligible. Bottom line, not all cost segregation providers are created equal. So be sure to take the decision seriously from the beginning to protect yourself for years to come. Please contact Bedford's Business Development Director, Frank Judici, to learn more. And Conrad, normally at the end of every show, I ask people how they give back, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk about maybe your life focus now a little more, and the one of a kind, give back platform, like your bio talks about.
Yeah. So everybody has, times in their life where they have like these aha moments, and I've had a few of them, and a lot of different things came together kind of all at once in the last couple of years that really made us reinvent, Paladin Partners and kind of what our main purpose or goal is in life. I think a few things happen. You have children. Once you have kids, you see the world differently. Secondly, maybe some stories or people touch you in a certain way that you're like, wow, I hadn't really thought of that. And so for me, I was at a broker trip for a company called Hillwood that's based here in Dallas. If you don't know who Hillwood is Ross Perot's company, and they do everything, industrial, office buildings, multifamily, retail, you name it, all over the country. And I was at their broker trip in Colorado Springs at the Broadmoor, not last summer because of COVID, but the summer before. And Ross Perot Sr. had passed away about 3 weeks before. And what's interesting about Ross Sr. is I'd go up to Hillwood's corporate offices, to visit, friends of mine that worked up there, and every day you'd almost see Ross, almost 90 years old, dressed in a suit, sitting in the same kitchen with everybody there. I mean, still going to the office every day and grinding. If there's pick up Ross's book, it's a simple book that's called Success and Principles. If Ross Perot's Secrets to Success and Principles, a great little bitty book, but it tells you the life story of Ross Perot, and it's pretty fabulous because he's a kid again who really came from nothing, and boy, you understand why he built so many successful organizations. But at the dinner on Saturday night, Ross Perot Jr. got up on stage and started talking about his dad for about 45 minutes. And he started telling stories about his dad, about, people's lives that he had impacted in a positive manner. And I'd always heard a lot of people at Hillwood talk about how Ross really gave back a lot. And, and a lot of them are unknown stories, stories that nobody had ever even heard of before. But I just finished that dinner that night, just kind of looking at myself, reflecting inward and going, boy, I've made this great life for myself and my family, but boy, I haven't done enough for others, And so that was one of the catalysts for kind of the starting the Give Back platform. Another one was there's a man named Tim Siegel. Tim used to be the head tennis coach at Texas Tech for about 23 years. I played professionally, and I went to Texas Tech, and so I follow a lot of tech-related people, and I started seeing posts on social media about what Tim was going through, and his son had a golf cart accident about 5 years ago where he flipped over and had severe brain trauma. And so, his son, Luke, now, really he's in a wheelchair. He can't really talk. And you see these posts and they're just heart wrenching, as a father myself to see. And so, I started just thinking, I've got to really do more. And so what we did at Paladin is I started thinking, how do we reinvent our platform to impact other people's lives in a positive manner? And so essentially what we've done starting at the beginning of last year was we donate a percentage of every single fee that we earn back to charitable partnerships, and we do it on the behalf of the client. So it's been a lot of fun, and we were about to have our first Give Back Gala right before the holidays. Then COVID started spiking, but we're having it now in April, and couldn't be more excited because Tim's going to be there speaking, and we're going to write a big check, and we're going to have a bunch of silent auction items, and we're getting a ton of sponsorships from the guys like Prologis and Stillwater Capital and National Title and some of these really big institutional players. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's incredible to have that give back philosophy or mentality, as we are pushing forward in our business. I know it's very important to us, as well. And it's just been incredible to see what happens, because of that. What about, I wanted to pivot just a little bit just because your experience and length of time in this industry, Conrad, I wanted to get your opinion and ask every operator or people in your shoes just about being prepared for a downturn. And like your thoughts on, when purchasing commercial real estate, thoughts that you have, whether you are debating passively investing or, in a deal, or whether you are working with an operator, who's purchasing something. What do you like to see to know that, they're prepared. They're prepared for the worst?
Well, what's interesting about this industry is, there's always buyers for both time periods. There's the opportunistic buyer who's waiting for the blood in the streets, and then there's the guys that are right now, when we're at what I would consider the peak of the market, that are still placing capital, at, upper 3 caps, low 4 caps. And it just blows my mind because myself, as as a personal investor, that return's just too thin for me. I think you always got to look at price per pound. I think when you really start talking about real estate, like what are you paying? And when I say that, I mean price per square foot. Guys in our business understand price per pound, but how are you, even if you paid X, are you going to be okay if the market took a 20% dip? As what goes up must come down, and the markets are cyclical. They're going to come back down. You're going to see a correction in like, for instance, retail right now, but people are still not even buying. They're still waiting. They're waiting for it to get worse. The office market is in a little bit of limbo because of, the whole work for home world. But then I know you're a multifamily guy. I talk to multifamily guys, data center guys, and industrial guys, and the market couldn't be hotter. I mean, it's white hot on industrial right now. I can't find land sites fast enough for developers to buy in Dallas Fort Worth right now. And, I'm not I'm a guy that does deals all over the country. I've done deals in about 125 markets now, but most of my focus is here in DFW. And because of that, I'm just bullish on where we are and where we're located. I mean, you look at, there's over almost 400 people a day that move to Dallas Fort Worth a day. So you as an apartment investor, those people got to live somewhere, right? I mean, so and me as an industrial guy, all the things that they use has to go in a warehouse somewhere. Toilet paper, hand soap, you name it. And so when you're in an area that's just expanding like DFW, I'm not as worried about bubbles or bust or price per pound as I would be if I was maybe buying stuff in Manhattan right now, right? When you have a mass exodus out of the city to the suburbs, and you got a lot of restaurants that have shut down. I mean, I can't imagine the turmoil that's going in that, in a city like that, or, San Francisco and LA are experiencing the same thing on the other coast. I mean, every other day you read an article about one of their corporate headquarters, moving either to Dallas or Austin.
Right. Yeah, no, that's some great insight. Yeah, just thinking through the market and your experience in the market, and how we're buying or in what asset class right now. What about on that same line of thought? Just your prediction over the next 6 to 12 months in the real estate market. What do you expect?
What's interesting. So I live and breathe the industrial space, and pre-COVID, 11% of all sales were online. And once COVID happened, we spiked up to about 16%. So we had a 5% growth of online sales due to COVID. But now you're starting to see that trickle back down a little bit because people are getting back out to, a little bit of normalcy. Most of these states are starting to reopen and all those other things. Industrial, I think, is going to continue to grow because of the growth of e-commerce in general. You have kids now that are graduating from high school that have had an iPhone their entire life and bought online their entire life. My parents, who are baby boomers, are the perfect example of people who were captured during COVID because they had never bought online. And then now my parents, after they were forced to, are like, wow, this Amazon deal, like I just click and put it in my cart, and a day or two later, it's on my front doorstep. This is the best thing ever. And I'm like, I've only been telling you for 5 to 7 years, and I think, and then you have like things like the ghost kitchens and Uber Eats, which my parents got into, they're like, wow, food can be delivered to the house. And so, it depends upon where interest rates go, as you know. It depends upon, I'm a little fearful of the new administration from are we taking care of American businesses first? Again, I will say a lot of people hate Trump. I mean, there's some things I hate and there's some things I love about him. But what I do love as a capitalistic guy is I like low taxes for people, and I like a promotion of bringing manufacturing back to the United States. And if those incentives are not there anymore, are we going to just keep sending it? Are we going to send more back to China? Or, I mean, I've been writing about it a lot and talking about it a lot. I honestly think Mexico is going to be the biggest beneficiary of COVID-19, because we learned for the first time, and this is me on my industrial supply chain, soapbox here, but we learned for the first time, you can't depend on another country that's a three-week boat ride away, that's stuck in a port for another 2 weeks, to get their product unloaded on fulfilling your supply chain needs. We got put in a pickle, and the beauty of Mexico is within a day's truck drive along the Texas border, your product can be in your distribution center in Dallas, Fort Worth, and on to your final customer versus waiting over a month like it would from China. And now that China has had labor rate increases and that have had a lot of prosperity over the last decade, when you factor in the logistics cost from the Far East now to the United States, Mexico is on par with China now. So I honestly think Mexico is going to be a huge beneficiary for additional manufacturing along the Texas and southern border. But then in turn, almost all those guys have their main distribution centers here in the DFW market. So again, I'm just bullish on, the future growth of industrial here, because that's the final product will be delivered out of a warehouse here in Dallas-Fort Worth.
Oh, those are some great insights, Conrad. Unfortunately, we are about out of time. And one more question very quickly.
Yeah.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Probably my dad's teachings as a young kid of just the value of hard work. I was a kid who was feeding cows and digging post holes for fences and, burning brush and, all those type of things. And you get exposure to that hard lifestyle. And I think it gets ingrained in you of if I work at something, if I work at anything hard enough, I can be successful at. And I've just tried to take the work ethic that I learned as a kid and transfer it into my business today.
Great advice right there. Appreciate you sharing that. And Conrad, grateful for your time today and get to know you a little better personally and just hear your story in commercial real estate and now your desire to make an impact and give back and how you're doing that and just some basic principles, but that most don't put in place, right? Just like you learned from Ross Pro and Tom Landry, all those guys who really stood out to you, even your father, through hard work. So appreciate you sharing those things. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Sure. Yeah. I'm big on LinkedIn. So if you can follow me on LinkedIn, it's just at my last name or my name, which is Conrad Madsen, Madsen. You can find me on LinkedIn. I have about 17,000 followers or so there on LinkedIn right now. My website is Paladin, Paladin -partners.com. Those are the two best ways to find me.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.